KKHT wants you to meet three of the classiest guys in real estate.
I am Chris Kelso, the maestro of mortgage.
I am Rob Cook, the godfather of real estate.
And I'm Joe Orsack, the king of credit swing. And together, we're
the Real Estate Rat Pack.
Much like us, real estate right now is smoking hot. So whether it's buying, selling, or owning, you need to check out the Real Estate Rat Pack.
They're here to take your calls and answer your questions live. Call now, 1-800-808-5548. And now, the Real Estate Rat Pack!
Every week it's the same thing.
Yay, it's in stereo again. Last week was mono.
I know
Last week was mono, right?
Left channel only.
Yes, I know.
We missed you last week.
Well, thank you very
We were
much.
off
I
seeing
missed
the Mouse and the Magic Kingdom.
Absolutely. I
Are
missed
you
the
kidding?
crew, but
We had a gorgeous co-host. We didn't miss him at
That's
all.
true.
that is true.
Yeah, so Teresa, if you're listening out there, we really appreciate you coming out.
Yes.
So anyway, so we've got a great show today.
We have a great show today.
And we've got some great guests.
We have some incredible guests as usual.
And some of them I've been trying to get on for a very long time.
That is correct, and we have a two-timer also in the studio.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you are. Renee, you're now a two-timer.
Not literally.
You have to love that reaction.
I'm glad this is radio, because if you'd have seen the look on my face just then.
What? How dare you?
Actually, as part of the Rat Pack, though, we have our special guest. We have our two-timers. We have our three-timers. And Teresa's actually one of our four-timers, isn't she?
Well, she was
yes.
host last week.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
So she's the only three-timer that we've had on the show.
Yes.
And she's only one of a couple co-hosts.
That is correct. That is absolutely
guest
correct.
host, I should
and then
say.
and then
Right,
Renee,
host.
you're one of only a couple of two-timers.
That's right. A
I
handful.
love the label.
Yes.
Love the label.
Well, I was out trolling
Two-time and Rat
at
Packer.
women's boutiques, and I happened to, run into Renee there, and she was serving me some mimosas and things like that. And I said, "Well, come on to the show." So
Yeah, because
I'm trolling for guests.
Yes.
Again.
yeah, Rob's just out touring women's boutiques.
Yes.
And
Because
shout
that's
out
what
to
we do when we
shout
don't
out
have
to
anything
Marlo
to do.
Miller there. How are you? Good morning. So yeah, Rob came by and said, "Hey, why don't you come on the show?" And I was like, "Thank you very much."
Yes, and because you fit perfectly in the show today, because we're going to talk about working with custom builders and builders.
That is correct. One of the things is we always talk about, the most obvious things. And one of the things we forget to talk about sometimes is what is sometimes most obvious. People want to hear, how do you work with a custom home builder? How do you work in defining how to find one? How do you work in what maybe some of the selections, the criteria, et cetera, out there are?
Wanted to jump in real quick.
Please do, because we have
Yes.
another guest here. That
We have
has
another
something
guest.
important to talk about.
Very important to talk about. The Rat Pack is very big on charities and supporting charities. And
Absolutely.
A special guest just made it into the studio. Kids were keeping her late, but she made it on time, right as the opening of the
buzzer
show
went
was,
off, yes.
right as the buzzer was going off. Very special guest, Miss Chow Win.
Thank you. I represent the women's home, but I used to work in TV news, so it's so nice to be in radio because you can just roll out of bed, right? And just not have makeup on and your hair's all a mess. So thank you so much, Joe.
I didn't get that memo.
And
Joe
he's
puts
all
on
dressed
makeup
up
every
for
day.
the radio. That's how I looked at him. I was like, "You're all dressed up. Nobody's seeing you, right?"
We have to be the only radio show in town where we wear tuxedos. Nobody ever sees it.
And it's a Saturday morning. But anyways, thank you so much for having us. We're so honored to be part of this. The Women's Home is a charity that's been around for almost 60 years. We help women in crisis. We transform their lives. And Joe actually spoke to our ladies yesterday for a brown bag luncheon. They loved you, Joe. You are quite the charmer.
Thank you. That was very sweet.
Well, how much did you pay for it?
Yeah, I was going to say, that was like a
get an
great
invoice.
intro for $20. That was not bad. So,
Cheap date.
well, each month, Chris and I work together to sponsor a charity. And Mr. Kelso, a portion of every loan he closes goes to support a charity. And each month I host an event called RPM, which is for the real estate community, called Real Estate Professionals Mixer. And we support a charity.
Like Rob doesn't.
Rob doesn't do jack.
Rob's out promoting both of us.
Rob actually works with the charity directly, much like Chow here. So she's the community. What is your official title with the?
Well, I'm a social worker. I'm a licensed social worker, but I do the community outreach, and I'm the manager of community involvement. So with events like this and third-party events, we are so honored to be a beneficiary charity. So thank you, Joe.
You bet. So we just wanted to give some awareness to the Women's Home, and it's a wonderful organization doing some fantastic work and getting people back out into life and back on a positive
always
track.
Important question is how do people get involved and if they want to make a donation, how do they do that? So if you can give us some contact information.
Yeah, please.
Well, please find us on the website. We're at www.thewomens'home.org. There are so many ways you can get involved. You can volunteer. You can be a brown bag speaker just like Joe. You can give back by going to special events. So many ways. Contact me personally. I'm on the website with a link to my email address, but it's a great organization to get connected. We really do help women, and we feel that when you help women in crisis to transform their lives, to get back into the community, you're helping your community, your families, and really everybody at large.
Absolutely. And this month, our RPM mixer for all the real estate professionals that listen to the show, all 5 of you.
Well, they're not awake
There's
yet.
3 or 4 here, so
yeah. So that's half the crowd right there. This month at RPM, Thursday at the Fish in the Knife, Chow Win will be there with the organization, and we'll be raising funds. So you guys come on out and bring your wallets.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't just bring your wallet, bring some cash.
Yeah, bring your
Yes.
heart. Honestly, just bring your hearts. I mean, get to know the organization, even if you don't donate. I'll be there to talk about what we do and the things we do in our communities. So, and we really look forward to meeting everybody this Thursday.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and being here right on time.
Yes.
And I guess we got to move on.
I would agree. You know, it's always good. It's a great way to start off the day, though, talking about one of the great charities we're supporting for this month. So I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And now I've got to run to the zoo and meet my family.
You have a good day at the zoo.
So she can say she's been to the zoo twice today.
That's right.
Yes.
right.
Exactly.
Well, you know, to my left right here, we actually have Renee Davy Oakum. She
Yes.
is back, as we mentioned. She is a second-time guest
And
of ours.
she is with Berkshire Hathaway
And
Home
she is with-
Services, Anderson Properties.
That is correct. That is a mouthful, but a great mouthful to have.
Yes.
It is. Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Our
And,
pleasure.
Of course, Renee, you have relationships with builders and representing them, and I know you have a great list, and I pass it probably every day over in memorials. Talk a little bit about working with custom home builders and things that you see, things that people need to know, and tell me the whole story.
The whole story. Well, in a nutshell, I think that when you're working with a custom home builder, when you have a client, you need to fit the builder to the client. You know, there are so many phenomenal builders in Houston and the greater area, but you need to fit your clients with a builder so that in planning the home, they get exactly what they're looking for. It's a long-term relationship. Very long-term relationship when you're building a home.
Yeah, longer than some of my dating relationships, really. It's like 9 months, and so.
It can be. You know, and speaking of that, though, you also have to define a good builder for the area, because if I'm not mistaken, you've got in Houston, you've got, you know, your acre properties, you have within the Memorial, you have villages, you have some historical districts.
Correct.
And these builders have to know some of those nuances in building in those some areas, correct?
That is correct, because also in building a home, it's not just the client that's going to make some selections, that the community, the homeowners association, everything has to be approved. You know, you have deed restrictions that have to be adhered to. And like you said, historical properties, you know, I'm not going to mention any properties, but there is one in the Villages that did sell for over $2 million, and the property can't be built on because there's historical property on there.
Oh,
wow.
My.
So that homeowner who thought they were going to build a home on that lot, there's a structure there that cannot be removed.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my. That happened. And actually, we had an occurrence like that happen in our office, and we remedied it. But it was the same thing. They bought it in Historic Heights area, and the builder's going to raise it, and guess what? Can't.
No can do.
No
Yeah,
can
because
do.
once it's designated as a historical mark, I guess, you have to abide by all those codes, conditions, and the original condition of the property, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. And whether it was, you know, it boggles my mind, because whether it was disclosed or not, you know, unfortunately, someone now owns that property that nothing can be done with it.
Wow.
$2 million. Bye-bye.
Well, you know, and also, you know, one of the things is, you know, we talk a lot about custom home builders. What's also the difference between, let's say, a custom home builder that we see, quote unquote, inside the loop or inside Memorial versus some of these custom homes that you see in some of these master plan communities? You know, a lot of times you see these master plan communities with these estate sections, right? Are those considered nowadays custom homes, or are they more like, you know, larger spec homes with some custom amenities to them?
In these master planned areas where they have like estate sections and gated sections, a lot of times there are designated builders for those neighborhoods. You have to select a builder in that neighborhood that's been pre-approved. A lot of those homes are spec homes that you can customize. A lot of the big homes are custom homes.
Right, but yeah, and a lot of them
I'm
are.
sorry, I drew a
Yeah.
blank.
No
I
problem.
was looking out the window. I saw chicken.
That is too funny.
12th floor chickens.
We just lost our producer too.
Exactly.
Wow.
They're cracking up.
Exactly.
That was awesome.
No, but
Sorry.
but one of the things you mentioned right there is they have an assigned builder, and this is really why I want our listeners to hear is there's a big difference between going out there and selecting one from 500 custom home builders versus having a selected 4 or 5 in the master plan communities. Nothing wrong with it, by the way.
No, not at all.
Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But a custom home from my perspective, the way it is, it's from the architectural diagrams and the planning and from every nuance associated. That to me is what a custom home is.
That is correct. A custom home from day one, you select your build area, your neighborhood, you select your builder, your architect. Everybody's a family for the next year,
Right.
And you build that house exactly to your specifications. That's a true custom.
What
Right.
I found often true is that a lot of people are linear thinkers, and they don't really have the capability of envisioning what it is. Some people think in 3D. I think in 3D a lot, and I know some other people are very creative and can do that, but a lot are not that way. How do you get them to get a good concept, and how do you keep them from doing things that are like crazy? Because I looked at a very expensive house the other day that was built very specifically for somebody, and it was like, this house is going to be tough to sell.
Right. You try to guide your clients to do, first off, even if you're building a custom home, most of the times, 9 times out of 10, it's not your forever home.
Right.
Because, it's not like the old days where we lived somewhere for 40 years. So you have to keep in mind your resale and not to do anything that's really unusually out of the ordinary.
And and you mentioned for resale right
Chicken.
there. One of the things, chicken's flying by again. I'm just joking. But you mentioned for resale, that is important because I think I was reading this the other day. The average individual is now staying in their home for less than 7 years.
Correct.
Whereas from the generation of my parents and probably older than that, you're absolutely right. They were staying in their homes 30, 40, retiring in their homes,
Sure.
right? And back then, a custom home for my granddad. My granddad built his home. Literally, he built his home. So he had a vested interest in staying there for the long term. Nowadays, you really don't. You see a lot of times individuals are building their own custom homes, but they also have that eye on what can I resell it for in the future.
That's correct, and not to overbuild, for your area, or the community that you're building in. Stay within the community price range.
Right.
That's really important when you're building. It's really important, too, when you're building, and I don't know if we should bring this up, but, you have your budget.
Right.
Have your budget set.
Oh,
That's
yes.
so incredibly important because every little change that you make, everything that you do to go back to the drawing board with your architect, hits that bottom line.
Well, and I'm going, we do a lot of construction loans for individuals that are building their own home.
Mm-hmm.
And I sit down and have this conversation with everybody because you mentioned budgeting. Is one of the biggest things they leave out is they try to go in and they're very cost conscious and I want to build it for this price, and they have a built-in contingency. Let's say a 10% contingency. I can't tell you how often 10% is not enough of a contingency.
No,
because
it's
once
not.
that home's being built, generally they'll walk in and say, I should have put in the travertine instead of going with XYZ, or I should have done this, or I want to actually have a larger room, or and so what ends up happening is that 10% contingency on $1 million home ends up needing to really be 25% contingency.
It's like the husband goes to the wife and goes, we ought to move that wall. How much could that possibly cost?
Well, and I think it's really important to understand when you're building a house, it's not just the stuff that you see.
Right.
It's not just the floors and the sink and the chandeliers. You've got to remember all the behind the walls, all the wiring, all the plumbing, all of those things that you don't even get to enjoy after the home is built. It's
Correct.
It's not just your decor selections.
Right. And, and that's why I was saying, when you say going with a budget, also going with a reasonable and a knowledgeable budget, because the one thing is if you try to do something too much on the cheap, it'll end up being a lot more expensive by having to change it in the future. You see it all the time. I need to move this wall, as you mentioned. Moving a wall is not as simple during the construction process. If you already have all the diagrams made up and all the wiring going, you can't change it that easy. We're up against a break right now, aren't we?
Already.
Already. Time flies when you're having fun.
So
we're
going
to take a break right now. So, and when the chickens are flying by as well. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I've got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow. Got the string around my finger. What a world